have the pleasure to welcome Belief Defect. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hey,
To jump straight into the matter of things, you guys are pretty busy right now, right? Something is happening.
We got our new album, Desire and Discontent, is dropping November 29th. So that's coming out on Raster. It's been quite a while since our first debut album that we put out, but it's been a lengthy process finishing this second record. With a halt being put in the middle of it through a global pandemic. And creating some space in between us, which we were unable to get into the studio together. I think we attempted to work on this album together as much as possible because that relationship with us both in the same room is kind of what we feel at least has made the record as special to us.
Is this new album kind of like a continuation of the first one? Does it complement it, or is it a completely separate thing?
I think it's a completely separate thing in the sense that it's not picking up on any specific, at least musical position the previous one might have left us at, but it makes sense in the same way as in it's still a concept album. It's still a whole thing, as in it's not a. It holds the same principles as the first one in the sense of inevitably political, inevitably on the industrial side of things. Not as light as the first one because the first one has like shorter songs and catchier ones probably.
You mentioned specifically that it's denser. Right?
Yeah, it's thicker. Yeah,
Heavier.
Yeah.
Heavier as in like it's more elaborate, or it's like the arrangements are denser, or the sounds are like.
I think in every sense is heavier in this as in. I mean, it's less noisy than the original. I think. I don't know if more.
Yes,
No?
I mean, I guess that's up for the perception of whoever's listening to it. I think every description you gave for dense qualifies. But I will
Except stupid.
in terms of the way the music was put together, it's densely layered in terms of intricacy.
Mm-hmm.
Amount of work and the attention to detail and the precision can be glanced over very easily by somebody who just kind of skips through it. But I think it's a record where if you spend a tremendous amount of time listening to it, you're constantly going to discover new layers and new parts of it that you didn't hear the first few times that you ran through it.
We were trying to finish the record for years, literally. As in, we were gonna finish the record, then COVID hit, then that just put a damp on everything. And after COVID, reevaluate everything we had done for the record and, remove what didn't seem necessary. And when we finished the collection, the 8 tracks that the record comprises, it was instant. Mo was like, "That's it. It's done."
When we were working on the first record, there was no pre-designed plan of what Belief Defect was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a combined frustration between the both of us of what we were working on and what we were doing in our personal solo careers.
Yeah.
And having this extreme desire and need to do something that was 100% free of any limitations and without a doubt, like unprecedentedly our own creative vision towards things. So we worked on the record and put it together. And even when we released it, I mean, some people may know or not know, but we released it anonymously. And it wasn't because out of some like underground wanting to be secretive, project, but it was more of this, like, we don't want anyone to know who we were to come into listening to this with any kind of pre-existing thoughts of what to expect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You wanted to kind of prevent bias in the listening.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So after we went through that whole process and, it became what it was, and we fully fleshed out the aesthetics, we fully fleshed out the visual element to it, how it visually feels, the aesthetics behind it. I think the second album was time for us to refine the entire vision with a completely new foundation. Like, this is what we built, not knowing what it was going to become. Now we know what it is. Now we know exactly where we want this to go and how we want it to be.
But I mean, it's kind of hard to dissociate the fact that there was a pandemic in the process
Oh
and
yeah,
what the
completely.
project has become. I mean, this is kind of, it taints or it colors the project. The
Yeah, yeah,
dystopian
inevitably.
nature of music gets uplifted by the fact that we were isolated and doom and gloom and the world is falling apart and what's happening and who
Well,
are we going to be on the other side also, right?
we were already miserable and doomy. the, the pandemic
Well, there's
literally,
honesty.
yeah, no, I mean for sure. The pandemic rendered us useless. At least Mo and me. We
Yeah.
we we had a podcast with Hiroko to kind of compensate, like hanging out, and we kind of focused on that. And I remember because we would interview other artists, and the first question is, so how's the pandemic been for you? And everybody would go like, not everybody, but a lot of people would go like, dude, this has been amazing, and ta 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 ta. And my fucking David Truncate was like, of course, I have all my day planned out, and I wake up and then do exercise and fucking drink my coffee and then start studio. And we both were like, how the fuck do you do that? I said,
I wonder
haven't you
myself.
seen the nothing outside? As in, what for?
It wasn't that we were just isolated that was, the
The
tragedy.
problem.
You know, there was a series of fucking terrible life shit that was just going on, regardless if there was a pandemic happening or not. It just
Yeah,
happened
yeah,
to happen at that time.
yeah. My dad died, for example.
His father passed away. I had several family members who was incredibly close to me that passed away.
Yeah.
I mean, just it was turmoil in
Dimension.
general. I think the isolation made it harder to mend those things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that was like, holy fuck. It wasn't like we were just sitting around crying that, everybody has COVID and the world is falling apart. Yes, the world is falling apart. Yes, there was riots on the street. Yes, there was political turmoil going on, racial conflict. All these things were just adding to the fucking pressure cooker of shit that was just going on all over the place.
You said that at the beginning there was frustration, which gets me to that interesting part of like, you have a prolific artistic outlet that you have built for yourself. But then suddenly something pushes you to take on this additional persona or like this added identity, this added layer where you can channel everything that does not get addressed in that other persona that you usually have. And frustration is a strong force.
Working together, you're both combining elements of your personality into it, and each of us are participating separate parts for us. But it's not like a singer-songwriter thing where you write a song and you say, well, this song is about this. This is the story that I'm trying to get across. There is symbolism, but I think that in this particular record, there's portions of it that are incredibly noisy and angry. And there's part of it that's incredibly melodic and, heartbreaking, so to speak, in those elements. And I think that when we're going through those processes, whether we consciously are doing it or we're not consciously doing it, it's just a reflection of a particular emotion at that particular time when you're writing it. It's like,
But it's also a recurring emotion because even in the studio, even since the first record, for example, if Mo had a riff stuck in his head, he would fucking try to play it on every track until he fucking fleshed it out. And I was like, God damn the fucking thing. And eventually it would be like there. And then it's left alone. And, then the next.
Okay, fine. I make a concession. Okay.
No. No. What it's a concession until it's landed. And when it lands, it's like, okay, fuck it.
How can you keep working on something for so long, especially as two people, and not kill the baby in the process? How do you keep that energy alive? How you
Yeah,
It
that's
was.
the problem.
It never seemed to be at risk, really.
No, it's not I mean, there are moments where like some
Yeah,
tracks
we,
get overworked, and
Mhm.
then it's just like, all right, backpedal a little bit, and like let's focus on working on this record. It didn't feel like, oh, here's one track, here's a drum, let's write a bass line, here's a melody, and blah blah blah. Every single track felt like a production in terms of like, let's say like a film, a movie. Someone writes a script, right?
Yeah.
But you don't on for first day of filming, you don't start on scene one, you know.
yeah,
Principal photography might say we start on scene 32 in the middle of the film, and then you go back and in context you work on all the individual parts completely until you see the full spectrum of how the whole entire thing is going to fit together
yeah,
as an
yeah,
entire production. So there are elements of like revisiting this, restructuring this. Okay, this is a three-part track. You know, there's this part that pervades this particular emotion, and then it transitions, and then it's act two, and then act two brings you to this place. Well, how does that refer to the track that's going to be before it? What do we have to change about that and make it work together? So it's almost, even when I listen back to the record, I can't even fucking remember like the steps of
Mm.
how the hell we got to the
also,
final fucking
Like the
version of the track.
genesis of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
also,
it's like I don't know where
also,
it began. It was like a huge puzzle
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
brought together piece
Also,
by
there,
piece.
there were, there were, the funny thing is that the tracks that are in the album were never in doubt of being there. As in, my point is that, for example, Four Questions probably is the oldest track of the whole album.
Mhm.
And that one is uh, old as in a year or 2 years after we finished the last one and we started this one. And that was already held like promise, and it got stuck like literally 4 years
Mhm.
because like Mo says, sometimes just finishing it for finishing sake does not solve the problem really. And sadly or luckily, we're both as fucking persnickety as the other one. So Mo would do something, I'll be like, nah. And then I would do something and or send like an idea to Mo and be like, nah. And it lasted fucking 4 years. So we had to, for example, finish. Mo sent during the pandemic, sent some of the stuff he was doing just like on the ambient or melodic side with like a basic arpeggio, and there's the melody and harmonic structure on top of it. And I remember getting it, but I literally didn't listen to it as in fully until a year later. And when I heard it, I was like, God damn, this is how the fuck did I do this? As in, and then I worked on something to show Mo, and in a couple of days or 3 days, we were almost at the prototype ending of the track. So there were some things that came together instantly and made sense with the rest, as it were, and some were like Apprehension Engine and Four Questions and some other tracks. We just fucking decide. We just wouldn't let it go. Even when we're writing in the studio, we cannot help ourselves but to make fun of ourselves in the
Mhm.
sense that if Mo is playing, like when he was writing Disembarking Horizons, like a melody, that was so kind of melancholic and also kind of naive, but blah, 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 hopeful, he would start joking around like, we're gonna make it. And it was just like,
But I wonder now if you guys initially started out of, this kind of like frustration and not really a concept, and you say like this whole symbolism and
the
all of
first
that
record.
kind of emerged in the process, and now you feel like you have a language and there is a clear language, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
and the word belief has a lot of bias, like, you know, the word itself, and a defective belief. I mean, I see religious projections in there. I see the state as an observer. I see spiritual, you know, themes, everything. Does that sometimes feel like, now that you have that, it's kind of like a straitjacket that binds you to that language, or do you feel like you have endless realm to
I
explore?
th I think uh, even though we didn't have a clear objective during the first record, what was clear was that it wasn't going to be techno. And it wasn't going to cater to techno sensibilities in the sense of PR even. You know
Mm,
what I mean? And we were both trying to update our references of the industrial music that we grew up on.
yeah.
And we both were bored as fuck with music.
Hmm.
As in, it was that 10-year lull or 15-year lull after capitalist realism, again, capitalism, that music is still stuck in. And the kids don't seem to be aching for any novelty. So, yes, it was not clear what we wanted to do, but we did want to do something that reflected our anger and frustration.
You know, to answer
Well,
your question about whether or not
I'm gonna get a water.
symbolism is restrictive or not, I can see what you're trying to say with that, but I think the key element of not falling into that was by to never take ourselves too seriously.
Hmm.
Maybe our imagery and the videos and the artwork might seem like it's always like a very serious thing. We have a peculiar sense of humor.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a pessimistic sense of humor, but at the end of the day,
Oh,
we find
I like
comedy
that
in
though.
everything.
I like though that you use the word pessimism and not negativity.
Yeah,
Quite
absolutely.
different. Yeah.
It might be a pessimistic sense of humor, but it's funny, and at the same time, we're not completely pessimists. I mean,
Yeah.
there is optimism. We're not completely, sitting in a hole of hatred all the time, just sitting around being jaded about everything that we do. It's just about finding the comedy in it,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I think that helps at least me never it being too restrictive.
Yeah.
I think it opens a lot of creative doors in a lot of ways. I mean, even the title "Celebrate Me" on the record. I mean, most people probably just look at it as passing and they don't think about it. But if you actually dwell on it, it's fucking hilarious. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
how
I mean, it's
pathetic
tragic as well,
it is.
obviously.
It carries so many notions over. But
Yeah.
it's like how pathetic of a statement could it be? Like celebrate me. It's been heartbreaking, to be
Yeah.
frankly. I mean, me and
Well,
Drumcell.
actually, I would dare to say that you can hear the heartbreak and most of the music in the record. And for all the different reasons the heartbreak happened, either a deceased parent or uncle or aunt or the
Political turmoil,
the
uh,
fucking the
everything.
political military American apparatus, if that is not enough of a tragedy for anybody, well, that's also to be heard and seen, well, to be heard all over the record. So
Yeah, I mean, there was points when I was writing some of the melodies for the record, I would just put on the news and I would just mute it.
Okay.
And you would like just see the news reporting their consistent like fear, propaganda.
Yeah.
And it's just like
Narrative.
bodies piling up and people dying and riots in the street. And even though it's on mute and I don't even hear what they're saying, it played a role into whatever
yeah,
was
every
transitioning out of me into the music through my fingers on the keyboard. A keyword that you said earlier is being an observer and allowing people to be an observer. I mean, not that I need to include this in this interview, but we throw these our
Mhm.
techno parties observe. And that's also a key word too, is it's always about taking the most fucking ridiculous thing that's going on and even social criticism and not actually making a comment about it or saying, oh, you people are this, this
Mhm.
is why you're stupid. It's just showing a reflection of yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and observe that for a second. Look how fucking ridiculous it is.
or at least I think the criticism always includes us, you know?
Yeah, with the self-criticism is important too.
Yeah, as in because the more the second album than the first one, there's a lot of condemnation in it, even in the preachy religious tone, not by us, but by the samples we chose, like Chris Hedges or Cornel West, so on and so forth. So it is overtly political in specific tracks, but we are not we're never outside of the person who is being addressed. You know what I mean?
You include yourself. You
Yeah,
don't
of course.
separate.
Even the couple of tracks that the lyrics are original are literally talking directly to an individual, and I mean, I always assume it's us to begin with.
So the underlying notion that I take away from all of this is pure anxiety. Thank you so much, guys. Amazing.
No, not really. No, you can embrace
Paraphrasing.
you can embrace the nihilism.
Oh yeah. Can I now? I need a portion of nihilism after this. Yeah.
Definitely. No. That I think that's. Sorry for extending the conversation, but I think that's why it's so tragic, the music, because even though most people are jaded, if not 99% of us are jaded, the thing makes you feel sad about it. So the jaded turns into tragedy at the end, if you
And then the
allow it.
tragedy turns into comedy when it gets ciphered through us.
If you, it has a cycle. It has a cycle.
When I did my first Drumcell record, I was very happy and proud with it. But you know, and I still am till today, but I don't feel I feel like even some other projects, and maybe this is just a personal thing, but I feel like there was always some external motivation behind it to, I don't know, write a record that a DJ can play or something that, you know, fits into a level of
Promotional.
acceptance. Even my hypoxia stuff, which is more ambient stuff, I'm very proud of that stuff, but that stuff always came very easy to me. Like it was very easy to write that material. Like I would just do it in a day and I was happy with it. I'm still happy with it. This felt like a fucking exercise and it felt like, and no holes barred. You know, even when we released the first record, I was like, you know, for the first time in my life, I can honestly, and a lot of people say these things, but I call bullshit on it. You hear artists all the time say stuff like, "Oh, I don't care what people think about my music," but I think on subconscious level, it does. You know, external validation does permeate in some way or another. And I felt like for this project, for the first time in my life, it was the most relieving feeling I've ever felt in my life. I don't give a fuck
Yeah.
if anybody
Yeah.
likes this record or not.
What is, in your perspective, the ideal listening experience or like environment in which one should listen and take in, I believe, Defect record?
Well, I got an inside uh, tip for anybody that cares. We proved the record, the mixes on sound canceling Bose headphones. I had the earbuds. Mo had the proper ones, and it's a one-to-one translation of what it was in the studio, in the sense of bass, frequency response, et cetera, et cetera. So if anybody wants to listen to what we were listening to directly, as in you can, if you have one of those headphones, you will literally get the experience we had making it. That said, now that there's subwoofers around and stuff, that definitely is a must if you want to listen to it without headphones. It has to have proper bass reproduction as a minimum.
I was gonna say that. I would, being that I care about this record personally, and I would want people to experience it the appropriate way. I would say that one, having the appropriate frequency range to produce some of the low end frequencies that are in there is incredibly important because you would miss so much of the intricacies
Hmm.
of the record.
Yeah,
You hear full spectrum. That's on the technical side.
and stereo.
On a personal side, and I'm hesitant to use the word spiritual, but I would say that I would hope that people would embrace the same type of etiquette and ritual that you would if you were going to walk into watching a Stanley Kubrick film or something,
Oh,
where you would
okay.
sit down and listen to this record from the beginning to the end, like it's a film, like it's a movie, and experience it at a whole. It's not a let me skip through this track and find, oh, I like this beat. This one's cool. Let's listen to this. This is, for me, an entire conceptual production.
We're all of a generation that still knows and appreciates and remembers the integrity of records, right? You have to listen from A to Z and not just nitpick on Spotify, a track here, a track there, to get the whole story across. Like you wouldn't watch just one scene from a Stanley Kubrick movie and,
No.
I see there's a clear tendency in the hip hop roots to merge with industrial music in certain bands, not all of them, obviously, but there's a clear tendency of a hip hop vein trying to merge with electronic and industrial specific, as in bringing back like the more
Whether it's even conscious or unconscious, it's definitely.
yeah, but I would say, yeah, maybe that's a good point. Maybe it's completely unconscious, and it's just if you're old enough, you can see the phenomena happening. And in that sense, fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say about that. Oh, that I think the way in general, but specifically to us, from the difference between the first record and the second record. The second record is, like Mo said, it's a movie. It's a movie in 8 chapters at the end, or a story, if you will. And it seems in the same way hip hop is trying to merge with something. We've replaced the melody hook, verse chorus. Structure by the cinematic one, and as in it has the musical coherence of a bigger movement, like not a formal music piece because we're not that, but if you just keep it within the scope of cinematic narration, this would be the evolution of music in a way, in the sense that it seeks to have another medium of expression and also integrated.
Whoever did the artwork for the records, we've never ever really controlled what their creative vision was. It was
No, the mastering also.
please listen to the record in full. Tell us how you feel about it, and how you feel like it can be perceived visually. And like for the first record, Sarah Sicken, who's a prolific artist in creating physical art using prosthetics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she actually takes molds of people's faces and, with silicone, and then recreates the molds out of resin. She put that whole album cover together that we felt kind of nailed the aesthetic perfectly of the record, with the two faces kind of stacked up on top of each other, and added a lot of symbolism to the record. And then even with this second record, Juan Mendes, Silent Servant, who did the artwork for this one, we went to him, we told him this is what we wanted to call the record, Desire and Discontent. We want to be able to kind of explore the dichotomy of those words and what's in between them and their meaning between it. And he put together this incredible idea of using this like bed of roses with, or a skeleton of a snake right on top of it, and he just kind of nailed the entire aesthetic. It became a lot more pointing to us shortly because he finished the artwork just, I don't know, like 2 or 3 weeks before he passed away.
Incredible.
Yeah, like it was his last.
Yeah, it was a task. We were trying to refine it, but even when he turned,
But I mean, it was his last Work.
was his last work that he had worked on. And, he's an incredibly old friend of mine. We've known each other since we were fucking kids. And, he was like, holy shit, man, fucking, I really like this record. I really like the way it sounds. And I'm really proud to work on this, which was great. He never even really got to finish final editing the photos. We got the rough sketches of them, and our good friend Caesar, who was also good friends of Juan, who knew Juan's aesthetic and knew what Juan's direction was and knew exactly what he would have done to finish it, really finally put the final touches on it and nailed it
Oh
perfectly.
my God. For the facts about the release, when is it out? And it's released on the Raster, right? And
Yeah, it's
Yep.
released on Raster. It's coming out November 29th.
And there's gonna be a special edition,
Yeah, we're actually doing
triple fold,
triple
double.
gatefold record. So it's basically a 3-page gatefold vinyl. And it
pressed by
pressed by me.
yours truly.
Yeah. So 2 records on the side, and then we're actually printing, I think like a 12-page booklet of all the artwork that Juan meant for the
Okay.
record, and that's going to go
Okay.
into the center pocket.
And does it ship with noise canceling Bose headphones?
Um,
Come on. I mean, that was a hint. That was like,
well, I mean,
We'll ship them via Amazon.
all right.
it's fit to mention the fact that Merlin worked on the record.
Yeah,
on a
Merlin
couple of tracks.
Etor. He's a drummer, and he also produces tracks.
He's a musician in general. Yeah.
He produces music under the name Sorcery, techno producer, but he actually contributed live drums to the album.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me, for sharing so openly, for showing how much of a vulnerable and difficult process it was. I think this is an important thing to know and consider for ourselves.
I was 25 when we started.
You're 28
Now
now,
look at me.
so that doesn't say much.
I know. That's
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.